Network.
Hello, Mark Capola here with another edition of the Valhalla Movement podcast. And today we have a very special guest, somebody who I've been following for a little while, and somebody who talks about topics that definitely resonate with me and definitely resonate with where Valhalla started. I had personally watched documentaries about where money came from a couple years back, and it completely changed my life. Right, to understand that we had this perpetual system of debt and fractional reserve banking, and that we had more debt than money, and it just didn't make sense. And that kind of propelled my life. That kind of propelled my kind of initiation into the world of what can we do? Is there a better way? Is there a way that we can kind of cooperate versus compete? And I know our guest today, Michael Tillinger, who is part of the Ubuntu movement, is clearly very, very, very passionate about this, is a strong advocate of some really interesting ideas surrounding contributionism, and we'll dive into that in a second. I just want to, first of all, let you guys know about something that we're working on. I know you guys hear it if you're a regular listener of the podcast. I'm going to say it one more time. We're working on something called greenseed.me at Valhalla. It's something that's coming. It's a crowdsourcing platform, and we're talking about, contributionism and a world without money. Well, guess what? We need a way to be able to get projects off the ground with more than money. We need a way where people can donate their time, their resources, their efforts, their expertise to projects and make those things happen. And that's what Greenseed is all about. So if you guys want to know more, it's going to be coming out ideally in November. We're going to have some kind of like a soft launch of beta. You can go and sign up for updates on this and being a part of that. We're going to let you guys know about this at greenseed.me. But without further ado, thank you, Michael, for being on the podcast with me today.
It's a great pleasure, Mark. Nice to be talking to you.
So, for those who haven't maybe heard of what you're working on, what Ubuntu and the Ubuntu Party is all about, what you're kind of propagating here, let's start with why this came out. What is it, and what inspired it? Where is this coming from? In you and in kind of, and why is there so many people surrounding this at this point?
Well, I guess, ultimately at the root of all things, truth resonates. Truth resonates through everything. It resonates with everyone. And once people hear this message, which is not my message, I'm just the messenger, is a universal message. It's not just a message for our planet, but it seems to be a universal message. It resonates with a lot of people around the world, in the hundreds of thousands now and possibly millions. We don't really know how many people there are that are resonating with us, but based on the views of our videos and the people that are viewing our websites, we probably have way more than 5 million, maybe 10 million views on the collective views of the various video materials and presentations and so forth. So we can also see from the number of people that are emailing us on a daily basis that we can't keep up with the responses to the emails. People just saying thank you for doing this, and we'll spread the message wherever we can. Truth resonates. Once people hear this, they just feel this deep-seated need. It's like they discovered the core understanding for their being, for being alive, that there is a way out, that everything we've been told about how the world is run and managed, all those are lies and deceptions. And it's only when we start moving away from the control of money that we start realizing how free we should really be. And this is it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful journey, I must admit.
So I feel like there's the movement of truth. I love, first of all, that you're saying what truth resonates, and it's 100% definitely true. I feel like there's a shift that happened, and maybe it happened in 2012, maybe it happened before, or whatever. I feel like before, when we were talking about these problems in our society, when these problems were being brought up in documentaries like Zeitgeist or whatever it was, that we were very focused on the problem. And the problem is something that we're all kind of awakening to more and more. As you said, maybe it's 10 million people, maybe it's 100 million people, who knows, so, right? It's impossible to kind of quantify the number of conscious, kind of sentient human beings that are kind of getting behind something like this. But the idea is that it is growing. And I think it's growing because we are also shifting away from the problems and now talking about the solutions.
Yeah.
And, Valhalla movement, I don't know how much you know about what we're doing, but Valhalla movement's main mission is to proliferate freedom culture. And what does that mean? Freedom culture is to empower and encourage all individuals to spread their unique gifts to the world. And people are like, okay, well, how? How are we going to do that? And I'm like, well, why don't we create a system that empowers us as individuals, that empowers us to be able to work together and collaborate and cooperate more so than compete. Fly what I call a collective flag, right? If we all come together under Ubuntu, under Valhalla, under New Earth Nation, whatever you want to call it, if we all come together on this resonant kind of truth and ideals and ideas, then we can make them a real thing. And I love the fact that you're kind of coining this. You're kind of leading the charge in creating in a sense the word contributionism and what that means and how that kind of is beginning to be shaped. And I love that you don't just say it. Right? Like, documentaries have said it in the past, but you're now boiling it down to kind of specifics as to like how many hours should somebody can contribute, how a village who contributes a certain number of hours, a certain amount of, effort towards community ideas will allow those ideas to flourish. And I see this happening at Valhalla, but I would love to hear a little bit more about what contribution is to you. Like, what does that mean? What are you proposing here? And kind of why is it important that we start moving in this direction?
Well, Mark, thank you, and well said, well spoken there, brother.
Thank you.
It is all about cooperation and not competition. And it's competition within a cooperative structure is good, but competition within a corporate structure is really bad. And there are very distinct differences here. And this is really where people start to realize this. And just to go back to what you started with saying, why do you feel that there's a shift, that there's a rapid global movement of awakening? And that's absolutely spot on, because remember, we are in the age of prophecy. We're in the post-2012 era. We're in the new age. No matter what anyone says about it, the ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we are today. They had knowledge of the laws of nature that have been beaten out of us and indoctrinated out of us over the last few thousand years.
Absolutely.
The ancient cultures knew all this. I'm talking the very ancient cultures that go back many thousands of years, not just a few thousands of years.
So you must have heard about like Göbekli Tepe and Graham Hancock's work and stuff like that, right? I mean, these are showing that there was probably very advanced civilizations in the Turkey region, if not other places in the world for sure too. But we now have hard evidence of that, like of the fact that there are civilizations that do date back way further than the Egyptians and things, and they were very smart and very civilized for sure. Anyway,
well,
sorry.
you're touching upon my other favorite subject, and which is really my area of research that brought me to the conclusion of contributionism and Ubuntu, the ancient African philosophy that operates where that creates unity within community without money, and creating abundance beyond our imagination without money. And in modern society, that is just not understood. So what I've found here in Southern Africa are civilizations that go right back to the very origins of humankind. And these are times that most of our researchers, historians, archaeologists from the mainstream era or area are not comfortable with. When you say that we've got civilizations of 300,000 years old, immediately they just can't imagine anything like that. Well, unfortunately, if you allow your own perceptions and your own level of knowledge or acquired knowledge to be your limitations, then we will not make any progress whatsoever. So we have more than just physical evidence. We have scientific evidence here that I've shown the world that we're dealing with a very highly advanced civilization that lived here 300,000 years ago, mining gold, creating energy-generating devices that cover most of southern Africa. More than 10 million stone structures that are still generating free energy for us every second of every day. We're dealing with structures that are magnetron technology, silicon-based technology, that generates so much energy that we wouldn't even know what to do with it today. So, and other tools and artifacts that I've collected for my museum that I'm incidentally starting to rebuild. I'm building a new museum. We started today.
Wow.
And because my tiny little museum has just run out of space. So we've got tools and artifacts that date back 300,000 years that are highly advanced silicon-based technology.
Wow.
We got scientific proof and measurements and readings that cannot no longer be ignored. So now that we've shown that there's a vanished civilization here that's clearly connected to what the Sumerian text called the Anunnaki or the Anunna gods,
Yes.
or the Anunna beings. And those that have a problem with it need to go away and do some research.
Anunnaki and all that. That is a really interesting topic to dive into. So so for anybody who's looking at that or wondering, I'll put maybe a description in the link below for anybody watching. But that is an interesting rabbit hole to dive down into. But sorry, let me allow you to continue on that.
Yeah. Well, there's no getting away from it. The Anunnaki or the Anunna gods, the gods of heaven and earth, are primarily responsible for who we are today. And that is something that a lot of people are starting to find out. And it becomes, for millions of people around the world, and I guess thousands and thousands every day, when they find this and make this discovery, it's a huge moment of relief. So it is part of the awakening moment for millions of people that realize there's a much bigger story to the human race, who we are, where we come from, and why we're here, than you're taught at school. Remember, the schooling system is part of the dumbing down and indoctrination, mind brainwashing and mind-numbing process that we send our children to for 12 years so that they don't ask any questions. So, and it's worked very well.
It seems to be. It seems to be.
Now we need to undo all that. But so let's go back to, here we have evidence of ancient civilizations that go back right to the very origins of humankind, some 300,000 years ago in southern Africa. Mm-hmm. These are echoed all around the world, in the North Americas, in Australia, in India, South Americas, in Europe. You find connections to these ancient cultures all over the world. It's not just here in southern Africa. And that's what people need to not, overlook. Mm-hmm. And that really leads us to understanding, okay, so if this is who we are and where we come from, how does money play a role in this game called the human race, or this journey that the humans have been on? And it becomes very clear from, for those that have watched some of our presentations, there are very distinct moments in human history, and specifically the Sumerian texts that tell us that money was introduced to the human race at a very specific time as a tool of enslavement. Not directly, but by telling us that the first temples that were created by the Anunna gods and the priest kings that they appointed, the first priest kings and royal bloodlines were appointed by the gods. The Sumerian texts tell us that the kingdom was lowered to earth from heaven, and the gods appointed the first kings and priests, kings and the royal bloodlines from among their specially chosen people to rule over the rest of humanity. This is a very important moment in human history. And what did these first priest kings do? They created money. And they tell us this by default because they tell us that the first temples created by these kings were the first banks. And the first kings and priest kings were the first bankers that were taking silver and pieces of silver and any other precious materials people would come and bring to the temples, and in return would be given worthless pieces of clay tablets as forms of money. So
same game, different age, right?
Yeah, same traps, same lies, same deceptions. We work with worthless pieces of paper, and at least in ancient times, they work with clay tablets that last for a long time until they get broken and crushed. But they survive fires, they survive, avalanches, and survive floods. The worthless pieces of paper we use today won't survive anything, and they'll burn.
Absolutely.
So
it seems to be accelerating as well.
So now we have a situation where we know where money comes from. We know it was introduced maliciously by these royal bloodlines a long time ago, probably some 6,000 years ago, maybe even earlier. And now that we know this, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue being manipulated, bullied, and enslaved, and tortured, mentally tortured, and living lives of misery and hardship because of these royal bloodlines have taken control of our planet and enslaved all of us in our respective countries, put us behind borders? We realize that, this is not freedom. This is not free will. This is pure and utter slavery.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all heard, or we're all kind of waking up to the fact that we've become wage slaves. Okay, and whether that happened 6,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's true today. Okay, and I'm sure there's arguments on all sides of the coin as to when this happened and who made it happen and who's behind it and who's behind that curtain, and it doesn't matter anymore. What it matters is what are we going to do about it? That's what matters,
exactly
right. We could talk all day about like what all the problems are in society, whether it be the environment or water or this or that or banking or money, and they're all there and they all have validity. Okay, and it's not to say that we shouldn't be talking about them, that we shouldn't be informed about them. We should. We absolutely should. But now what we need in our world and our society today is more people focused on the solution. More people like yourself who are talking about, hey, what can we do physically every day that we could contribute to, that we can all be a part of, that we can all get behind, and that we can make a serious difference. And that's why I've watched Ubuntu go literally viral numerous times, and I've seen all kinds of people set up the little parties. We even set up a party, the Ubuntu Canada party, and in Quebec, and we're working on with some of the people around here. We want to see this grow. We want to be a part of it. And the honest answer is the honest kind of solution right now is we don't need a protest. What we really need to do is be part of the solution individually, and we have to contribute to it individually. I want to dive deep into what you mean by that, though. Like, let's go with what is contributionism, and what does it mean to you, and what do you think we can do very specifically that will enable us to get towards that, right? How do we shed this old skin? How do we shed this excuse my language, but this crap, and step into kind of the new world that we want, that we believe is possible, and that we know is possible in our hearts?
Well, there's one very important thing we need to do. Well, there's a number of things we need to do. A lot of things we need to do. And just again, for those people that start to think about these things and that see this as an insurmountable, huge task that we can never achieve, stop. Don't do that. Don't think those thoughts. It is a very simple, achievable objective. We just need to start doing it. The good news is we've already started doing that. In South Africa, we started doing that. In Canada, people are doing it. You part of it. I had a 2-hour-long Skype discussion with all the Canadian coordinators for the Ubuntu movement and the Ubuntu political party. And the Canadian political party will be registered by the end of October so that you can participate in the Canadian elections. I think it's next year, isn't it?
Yep.
2015 or the Canadian elections next year?
2015, 2016. I kind of have to rack my brain on this one.
It's soon. Yeah. The good news is that just like we participated in the South African elections on the 7th of May, 2014, completely unexpectedly and firmly planted the virus of consciousness into a political beast, the same thing is going to happen in Canada, except it's going to escalate to a much higher level. Now, I've jumped from creating a world without money, utopia, now suddenly into politics. And a lot of people watching this will say, oh, you're selling out, you're going into politics, all this. If you think that, you have not understood what the task at hand is. We have to approach this from every possible angle. And the political platform is one of those angles we have to be visible and active on. Remember, politics is ultimately all about the people. Because we elect the politicians as our servants, the leaders who we think are most capable to do the best for us, the people.
And we need those people. We need those storytellers. In all aspects of history, we've always had incredible storytellers. We've always had people who are like public figures, and you can call them politicians or you can call them leaders. I mean, what's the difference between Gandhi being a politician in a sense or a leader? He was kind of one and the same. He's a person telling a different story and trying to make people move in that direction, right? And we need people to kind of travel around and talk and get people talking about these topics and get people to understand. And I fully agree with you. To ignore politics or to join politics is in no way being a part of the problem. There's in no way selling out. We have to be a part of every aspect of society, whether it be in education, which you pointed out is flawed, definitely, whether it be in politics, whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in everything. We need to be involved in everything that we do. And there are people better suited to be in the public space and talking publicly. And there are other people who are better suited on the ground, building new things or gardening or whatever it might be. We all have our own unique skills that we need to bring to the world. And we just need to allow every one of us to unlock it and to kind of, bring it forward. But I'm super glad to hear that you guys are getting the ball rolling in Canada as well.
Yeah, well, you need to join, and everyone in Canada needs to join. Find a Facebook page near you. The Ubuntu Canada website, I think, is up already or should be up very soon. But just to explain to people why this is so important, what we are saying with the Ubuntu movement is so radical that if you're not saying it on a political platform, it could be seen as treason, and you could go to jail. But if you have a political platform, it becomes your protection.
Yeah.
You can say virtually anything you want on a political platform. You can say we're going to break down all the schools and start teaching kids in the fields and cowsheds because that's your political manifesto and your promise to the people. You can make up any kind of promise to the people that your political party stands for and will go to the elections with. That's your right. If you start doing that just as some sort of liberation or freedom movement of consciousness, you'll be seen as anti-establishment, as undermining the economic prosperity of the country, and you could be seen as committing treason. So this is very important for people to understand. It's not just about selling out or getting involved in politics and becoming just like them. No, it's about injecting the virus of consciousness into the beast, and once you've done that, nothing in politics will be the same again. No one in politics right now, anywhere in the world, is saying what we said here in South Africa. And this is what all the Ubuntu movements and Ubuntu parties around the world are now going to be saying during their elections. And the first thing is, and this is really the fundamental, the step-by-step implementation of Ubuntu contributionism around the world. First thing we need to do is stop the central private banks from issuing the money.
Fully agree.
Until we do that, we will forever be enslaved. Canada had from 1939, I think it was, until the 70s or late 60s, had its own people's bank, or a bank that was controlled by the government, who controlled it on behalf of the people. That's when Canada was really prosperous. And then it was sold out to the Rothschilds and taken over, and the Rothschild global banking empire is in control of every central bank of the world. So the first step, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, right? So the first step in the political arm of the Ubuntu movement is to have a very clear mandate and manifesto to the people in the elections. And if you go onto the Ubuntu Party website, you'll see, if you scroll down to the month of May, you'll see the TV commercials that we had in South Africa that are now going to be emulated in Canada, in the UK, and Australia, and the USA, and Germany, and Switzerland, and Austria. Many countries around the world are now going to be doing that. And so many countries around the world are going to be saying, we're going to promise our people that we're going to close down the Central Reserve Bank that's privately owned and replace it with a People's Bank. Not because we believe that People's Bank is ultimately the solution, but it's the first step to removing money from the system. And these are key, critical, important steps for people to understand. The moment you create money for the people, by the people, you create the money tax-free and interest-free, because there's no private ownership.
Which is the biggest problem of what's going on today. Is people ask
the trap.
Yeah, well, people ask, well, okay, where is that trap particularly? Okay, and we can say fractional reserve banking, creating debt out of nothing, having more debt than there is money, and then always having money that we owe back to the system. It's like we owe, we borrow $1 and now somehow we owe $1.10. It doesn't make sense. Like, how can we ever get out of that system? We're always going to be enslaved to it. So that's the clearly that first step is it doesn't make mathematical sense, and that's enslaving us. Now, how is that enslaving us, right? Well, let's think about it very easily and logically. And I wanted to say this because I think it's very important that people understand. We use a word that all economists use called inflation. But really, inflation is devaluation. What it means is that my dollar, we used to be able to buy things for a penny, now we need $10 to buy that exact same thing. So how did that happen? It's not because it inflated. What it really did is that it devalued, and it devalued drastically over time, consistently. Every time we issue new debt, every time we print more money, if you will, what we're doing is devaluating. Now, how is that enslaving you as a listener, you as a person? Well, let's put it this way. How many people, if we have 2% inflation every year, how many people's wages are rising by 2% every year? Or more than that? If your wage is not rising, if you're not getting a raise, if you will, of over 2%, and that's the stated inflation, not probably the real inflation, if you want to call it inflation, if you're not getting over 2%, that means you are losing money all the time. Even if you're saving money, your money is worth less and less and less and less and less to the point where it is bankrupting you. That's what's happening.
So, Mark, what you really have to say to add to that is that no matter how you skin that cat, no matter how you try and break it down or explain it, it doesn't make any sense. For the simple reason that money that's created for our governments and then indirectly then for our people is controlled by a private corporation that sits in Basel, Switzerland.
Yeah.
Okay, and the central banking families control all the central banks that create this money at interest. So when we stop them from doing that, we create our own money for all the projects that we need in our own respective countries. Every town, every village, every city will have money created for everything we need. That means that there'll be 100% employment. Everybody that needs to move out of the city or wants to move out of the city into a small town or a village can do that, because when they move into that village, they'll create a need based on the number of people in that little village, and that need for building infrastructure or creating better schools or education system or hospitals, that need will be provided for by the People's Bank. So everyone, no matter where you are, will be taken care of. And that's the first simple step, by creating a People's Bank that issues money tax-free and interest-free.
So this is the doing that, when you're interesting, so on a technical level, just real quick, because I don't understand, I've watched many of your talks, I don't necessarily know, I know your answer to this. When you're saying, okay, you're going to transition from current banking system, fractional reserve banking, to a People's Bank, to eventually having kind of no bank in a sense, or ideally less of a bank, if you will, and it's slowly kind of downsizing. That being said, there's lots of interesting technology. People are like, well, what do we do? Is it Bitcoin? Is it cryptocurrencies? Is that how we're going to do it? Is it a mathematical equation that goes out into the sphere? What does that mean? What does that look like? Because that's what I really am interested in hearing from you a little bit more about, because I'm super passionate about this. I've been thinking about this for a long time, but I would love to hear
what I need to tell you, for people that are watching this, that are just like a bit startled, we need to urge everyone to please read the Ubuntu Contributionism book, because this discussion you may not find all the answers in this chat that we're having here.
Of course.
But in the book, I wrote the book specifically to deal with this issue, so that I don't have to explain it to people hundreds of times and thousands of times over and over again. Sure. It's all put down in the book step by step, so it takes you from the shallow end into the deep end of the deception and provides the solutions in simple, step-by-step, bite-sized, digestible chunks that you go, oh my goodness, this is so easy, it's so simple. How could we have been so blind and so naive and ignorant to have been deceived for so long? And that's when the penny drops, how simple it is for us to create abundance for everyone. In fact, the further we move away from money, the more abundance we create. And that will only become, some people understand this immediately because it's encoded in their DNA. Some people take a while to figure it out, and some people just kick against it with all they might because they're really, really deeply traumatized by the system they were brought up in. And so it's a very important thing to process this and realize that we have to remove money. All forms of money
electronic money, any form of trade or exchange. And this is why the 5-point mantra of contributionism goes as follows.
Sure.
No money, no barter, no trade, no value attached to anything greater than anything else, because all of our contributions are and should always be seen as equally valuable. And finally, the most important thing, a society where everybody contributes their God-given talents or their acquired skills of passion to the greater benefit of everyone in their community. It is a one-to-many exchange, not a one-to-one exchange. So whatever it is you do for your community, whether you're the rocket scientist, the baker, the farmer, the shoemaker, whatever it is you do in your community, you do it for everyone, not just for one person over there because he's going to give you a bag of potatoes. That's not how it works. This is a critical move away from most other systems that we've had. So the other important thing is that the contributionism model, and we've discussed this with a Canadian group last night. They started saying some of the people are very successfully already creating food in their villages, and then they packaging the food and they're going away and giving it away. I said that is not a model for success. Don't think that because you're giving food away, you're a good Samaritan, you're going to create a success story. No, you're actually creating a big problem. A huge problem. You're creating a culture of dependency with other people that haven't figured out how to create self-sustainability for themselves. So the contributionism model is very clearly defined in the book. It is not a self-sustainable community. It is a community of abundance where we create 3 times as much as we need to consume ourselves in our community. So it's a well-planned, well-implemented, well-monitored, well-executed operation on every level, so that you have not just one shoemaker, you have several shoemakers, and everybody has custom-made shoes and custom-made clothing and custom-made furniture, because that's how it works.
Yeah, I totally get that. And so let me tell you a little bit about Valhalla and where we kind of come from. And we, this is exactly what led myself and others to join Valhalla when we first started. And we're located in Montreal. We have 60 acres of land, and we decided that we were going to build kind of an eco-village, if you will, but really a space of a kind of like a gift economy, if you want to call it that, or if you want to call it contributionism. We wanted to create absolute abundance where we are, and then let that abundance flow as freely as we possibly can, and have everything, not like you said, not grow it to sell it, not grow it to have to go and create dependencies elsewhere for other people, to allow and create the space where people could come and contribute and be a part of that collective. Because what I've noticed really is, everything that we're describing as a problem today, I call it the tragedy of the commons, or it's known commonly as the tragedy of the commons, which is kind of like what's good for me as an individual might be bad for the collective, or is bad for the collective. And we have to shift that, because what's good for me as an individual in this kind of society, in a money-based society, is that we hoard as much as we possibly can for ourselves. Why? Because the more money we have, in a sense, the more power we have over influencing other people who are also chasing that money. And that's wrong. We have to get away from that, because that's what's creating all the problems in the classes and the shift between this corporation fighting that corporation, or this person fighting that person, or competing. That competition needs to dissolve. And what we need to do is come back under what, and again, I call it the collective flag, but I think we all have different ways of saying and naming it, but it's all the same thing, and it's that truth, really, of working together so that we can build that abundance and not worry about who's doing what, or my job is worth more than your job, or mine is more economic value than yours. There is no economic value. If I'm putting my time into something and you're putting your time into something, that's equal. That's equally valued. And we need everyone who's going to do every type of job, and not one of them is way more important than the other. I mean, guess what? The person who's a banker still needs shoes. The person who's a farmer still needs, a plumber. We all need each other. We all are super interrelated, and we have to work together. And that's what Valhalla is about. We have this 60-acre piece of land, and we're trying to turn it into that kind of space where people can come and say, "Hey, I'm gonna practice permaculture, or I'm gonna build an eco barn, and I'm gonna run a class, or I'm gonna run a little daycare and take care of your kids," and like create that shift, that consciousness that allows us to really live in that truth. And I see, as I have stepped into this role, as the people around me and the people at Valhalla have stepped into it, as all our supporters and the number of people who share and like and do all these things on Facebook, all of those things are now contributing more and more towards this truth, and I feel it growing. And I can imagine that you feel the same way.
Yeah, I just need to give you a few bits of, just areas of where you should look out for, and maybe some pointers, because
sure.
There are some potential hiccups that you're going to run into as this thing unfolds.
Sure.
And by applying what I'm going to suggest to you, you're going to avoid those hiccups.
Sure. First
of all, you need to look at this again. It's all beautiful words that many people have said, and many people around the world share, and many communities are going up like you're describing. We get thousands of those emails at the Ubuntu movement.
Sure.
Thousands, and I can't count them actually, which is a very exciting thing. But we've got to guide against creating a haven for people that just want to give up on life and go and goof off and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, just hear me out.
Yeah, no, I will. So, yeah, please.
Because we've had that experience here already, and we've had to process through that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're learning every step of the way as we're developing our entire town, into an Ubuntu Contributionist community,
mm-hmm.
using our head office as a sort of a tiny micro model of that.
Mm-hmm.
But what is critical? So let me go back, because I didn't finish the sentiment there because we had a break in the connection.
Sure.
You've got to create 3 times as much as what you need. So you got to look at your Valhalla community and say, how many people have we got here? All right, we're going to need the following. You got to look at your basic needs, and you got to identify your community projects.
Yeah.
What are the community projects that you need? You need fresh water, clean water.
Mm-hmm.
You need food. You need electricity.
Yeah.
You need homes, housing. You need hospitals, healthcare. You need some sort of education system.
Yeah.
Preferably very different from what is currently going on.
Mm-hmm.
And we do advise people to take their kids out of school immediately and start homeschooling them collectively, and using masters of various trades to come in and teach the kids true skills for life,
mm-hmm.
rather than fill their heads with rubbish from textbooks that were written with an agenda
mm-hmm.
to poison their minds. Anyway, so you've got to ascertain what your community needs. You've got to put master teachers or master craftsmen in those positions. You can't just have everyone grow their own food. That doesn't work.
No, of course.
Don't make those mistakes. You've got to grow food collectively for everyone, but it's got to be grown and controlled by the master farmer or food grower.
I fully agree.
That that becomes a community project in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So people go there and they work in that area. I'll outline in greater detail how that happens and why it happens. And this goes, basically everything in your community then becomes a community project.
Yeah.
From the engineers that are developing and designing whatever you need to design engineering, from the architects in the building and your building materials that you're creating, each one of these becomes a community project.
Yeah.
Now, once you've identified these community projects, if you have a community of 1,000 people, the model that I've proposed, and that will change from community to community, that I've proposed is that everybody contributes 3 hours a week
mm-hmm.
towards in one of those community projects.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got 1,000 people in your community, that's 3,000 hours a week. Just that alone, you can see immediately the abundance you'll be creating. You'll have too much milk, too much bread, too many bridges, too many bricks. And now you've got an interesting problem. So now you take that, you identify how much you need,
mm-hmm.
and you calculate what you're going to create, and you create 3 times as much of whatever it is that you're doing for your own community.
Yeah.
So that 1/3 is consumed and used by your own community. The other 2/3 are made available to your surrounding communities at a fraction of a cost. You don't give it away. That's the worst thing you can do. That is where your whole system will fall down. You have to sell it in the beginning. Okay. If that doesn't make sense, it'll start to make sense to you later.
I totally make sense.
If you sell it at a fraction of the cost to your neighboring communities for what they can attain their bread and milk and bricks or whatever the hell it is you're doing
mm-hmm.
from their own supermarkets and their own stores, you immediately collapse their capitalistic model.
That's it. Okay. So I have to say, I know you have way more to say. I fully agree with you on everything that you're telling us. And in fact, we've been kind of around for 2 years. This is our second kind of full season that we've gone through. And we're in that exact line of thought. We are like exactly running into that. Like, look, we have a certain power need right now, but we set up, in our case, we did solar panels for now. Okay, we know, there's all kinds of like abundant energy models and all kinds of things. We know about them. We needed power right now to be able to build some of the buildings, so we did that. We built a greenhouse so that we can grow food year-round, even in Canada, okay, out of Earthship models. So using, recycled tires, bottles of cans, something I'm sure you've heard about, Earthships. Yeah, so we built one of those, and we now started a giant permaculture food forest, in a sense, that produces way more food than we could possibly eat. Is it producing it just yet? Not quite, because we just planted some of the trees, and these trees need to get to the maturity before we're have that full abundance. But we are barreling down that path like you wouldn't believe. And all of our skills, whether it be engineers and architects who are now on our team working on new designs for kind of buildings that are super efficient, come together and can work literally anywhere in the world. Okay, that's something that we're working on. We're working now on Greenseed, which is a crowdsourcing platform. We have an online education platform that we're now building and coming together. Like, what we came at this with is we actually have a very good expertise in, if you want to call it, online presence or marketing or whatever word you want to use. And we've been able to kind of get tons of people to hear about it, and then to now kind of flow into the avenues and ideas and kind of, we break it down into 10 sections of society, if you will, that people can now kind of contribute to. And there's no real leader, there's no one necessarily person who decides everything for everyone, but there is kind of representatives that kind of flow and pick the projects that the subgroup is going to kind of work on and work towards. And it's been working. I mean, and not to say that there's not kinks, and I'm sure there's kinks in everything, things that you guys do. There's kinks in every community that is coming together. There's all kinds of conversations and feelings and emotions. We're human. We have to work through them, but it is working. That I can tell you. Yeah. And
what you know by now, Mark, is that what you've started doing, and like what we're doing here in South Africa in our town, it's never been done before.
Not that I know of.
And so it's not easy. It's not going to be an easy process, but it doesn't mean it's going to take a long time or that it's impossible, it can't be done. It's just every day we get up and we take another step. And we cross the hurdles and we face the challenges and we sort them out and we move on. Yeah. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And that's what I find the exciting thing. Yesterday we had a huge problem at our Ubuntu village here. This morning it's all sorted out. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going crazy, excited to get to whatever it is they're doing again, and so it goes. So it is an exciting time to be part of this. We're right at the forefront of it.
Oh.
We're leading into moving into a new era of human consciousness. It's exploding all around us, and unity consciousness for people working together. I never for once thought that I could even come close to uniting the people in our little town. Mm-hmm. Our towns in Africa have very different socio-political and socio-economic differences to what you have in Canada. Mm-hmm. And this is why every country, every province, every place will have its own unique set of challenges and circumstances. Therefore, there isn't one solution for everything. Yeah. There are some basic fundamental structures, and that fundamental structure is what we've already discussed.
Yep.
You've got to create, you got to create 3 times as much as what you need, because that becomes your resource for creating more community projects. It could make your community very, very wealthy.
Yeah.
It's like some of the kibbutzes in Israel. I've heard that some of those kibbutzes have become so wealthy, such wealthy areas, because they're creating technology and building things for large companies and so forth. So they're making so much money. But the problem is that they're not applying the contributionist philosophy, creating 3 times as much as what they need. And they're not affecting the area around them. They're feeding the beast that is keeping them enslaved.
They're hoarding it versus giving it.
Yeah, they're keeping it for their own benefit. Mm-hmm. And this is the problem with self-sustained communities. Yeah. Eventually, they'll either suffocate themselves or they'll isolate themselves. So when the shit hits the fan, the people come climbing over the walls to take what they've got. Yeah. And you don't want that.
I fully agree.
inform and educate and empower your neighboring communities and inspire, actually more than anything else, inspire them by what you're doing to say, my goodness, look at what these guys over there, they've got everything they can't even consume. They're giving stuff away for virtually for free. We want to be like them. And it's that simple.
You might as well be reading our own manifesto back to me, and I might as well be reading it back to you. I'm sure everything that your party stands for, and I say your party, but the party stands for, I'm sure resonates 100%. I mean, whether we have disagreements on small little topics here and there, I fully agree with the abundant mindset. And I see it speeding up, and I see it working. And, a lot of people ask me, so what's the first thing that we should do, right? Like, okay, let's say we're a group of people, we all believe in this. We're now going to start contributing towards something. But what's our first goal? And my answer so far has been build, we call it a sustainability learning center. Build a space where people can congregate, where people can come, where you can start setting up the programs and ideas and all assets of life, right? And all facets of life, in the sense that it would be, whether it be in education, whether it be in permaculture or agriculture, whether it be in power production and kind of engineering and architecture, whatever it is, okay? Have that one space where people can constantly come back and congregate to more and more and more. Now, you don't have to build it. You can already have it and just use it for that. But the same applies, is that we need to kind of, I give this as an example, and I find it very powerful. The example of if you were in a tug of war, right? The old system and the new system. And if we are all tugging in different directions, okay, versus the old system, we're not going to have the same strength as if we all get in line and we try and all kind of congregate this space and concentrate it a little bit more into pulling all in the same direction. Okay, and once we get that, once we win, once we can kind of change the tides, turn the story around, then we can start working and kind of moving into more and more different directions. But how that starts, I really believe for us, it's been working, is having that physical space. Most communities, or most intentional communities, lack the first thing, which is like, where are we doing this? And they have such a problem trying to come together, and who owns it and who does this and what is the structure and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of shaped, unfortunately, based on the old mindset of like, who owns what, right? What Valhalla is we opened up as a nonprofit just so that we can operate and not get in trouble. But we're really just an open space. Anybody can come at any time. We all just work. We all show up at least one day a week on Saturdays. We have tons of volunteers, and we all contribute more than 3 hours week after week after week after week. And it's growing. We have a greenhouse earthship. We now have a solar shed. We have power, and all of these things are funded by not our money, but really by other people's money and contributions, by other people's time and contributions. I'm not the expert who built the solar shed, nor is necessarily people at Valhalla, but it's the community that has come. They always come. It seems to flow so naturally and beautifully. So yeah, I'm wondering what you thought about that. Like, you seem like you guys have this home base where you're running the Ubuntu Party, and that's where it's kind of this village is forming around. Is that something that you prescribe to, in a sense that build one particular space and then allow people to kind of make the other spaces from that?
Well, what you're talking about are two very important directions that people interested in or resonating with this, moving towards a world without money, working towards unity within community, and what we call Ubuntu Contributionism is critical. So not everybody's got a piece of land. Not everyone's going to be privileged enough to find a piece of land or find someone like you to go and live on. But what we all do have, we all have towns, cities, villages that we live in. Mm-hmm. And this is why I've been promoting the philosophy of people within specifically small towns and small villages to start uniting and creating this unity within their community, and start looking towards creating these within their existing towns. You don't need to build anything. All the infrastructure is there. You don't have to find land anywhere. All the land is there around you. Mm-hmm. You need to start uniting the people and start speaking with one voice on behalf of the people to the municipality and the local council. So now you've got strength within your community.
Until you do that, you're scattered, you're divided, you're speaking as individuals.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing you need to do as your community. We call it the Council of Elders. So the people in the community appoint their Council of Elders, the most trusted and honored people, not politicians, not business people, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters that are most trusted, that you'll trust with your children, who will know that will look after the interests of the community and not their own interests. Those become your council of elders that then make decisions that are what should we do first or next in our community. Then the issue becomes, well, electricity is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Well, the solutions for electricity are virtually now not virtually, they have landed. We're now implementing a new alternative energy device for our entire town, which is a 1 megawatt unit that produces 1 megawatt. It's a small unit. There are designers that are doing huge units that do 10 megawatts, 50 megawatts, 100 megawatts. And so we're now in the process of uniting the community around the issue of electricity. So once the people know that this alternative free source of electricity, now this word free confuses a lot of people. When I say free, it means once we've implemented it and it's functioning, it is going to be running for free. But to implement it is going to cost us some money.
Yeah,
so that's where we're going to have to unite and pool our money and our resources to make sure we can get that device.
In what vein is this device operating in, if you don't mind me asking? You don't have to tell me the exact thing, but
I'm gonna be making this known. It's a device that's probably many people know about already, but I don't want to talk too much about it until we've got it secured. But there are at least 3 devices that I'm talking about: 2 major ones and 1 smaller one.
I think I follow this I studied this kind of stuff, perpetual energy, whether it be with magnets or whether it be Tesla Tower-esque or whatever. There's all kinds of people who have done it before, and we know it works and exists. It's just a question of how do we bring it back, right? I think that seems like what you.
Well, the reason, look, I've seen a lot of these devices, and very few of them actually work. A lot of it is hot air, and until I see it work, I'll be happy to talk about it. The reason I'm talking about this is because I've seen it work. I've seen it produce 1 megawatt power right in front of my eyes within seconds of being switched on. And so it's not something that is a pipe dream or, we're still going to develop it. No, it's running. It's available right now.
I know you guys are going to put that education out there at some point, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we're going to put that information out there as soon as I've, got, I guess,
together.
The go-ahead from the guy that's doing it. I mean, he's talking to a lot of people around the world already, but just from our own personal community now, is once we've got the buy-in, that's the wrong word, once we got the agreement from the community that this is what we want, we're going to take it to the council and say, we've got an alternative energy device. We, the people, want you, the town council, to implement this free alternative energy device that will benefit our community. And basically put the council under pressure and see how that plays itself out. There are ways that we can force the council's hand, the municipality's hand, to implement that. And this is the very exciting point that we're at right now. In fact, tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, we're having our town meeting with all the elders, all the chiefs, all the community sort of senior members of community, the pastors and so forth, all getting together to discuss this specific issue. Wow. We'll also be discussing issues of introducing alternative healing and alternative treatments to our little hospital. That is completely useless. It's a beautiful building, but it's completely understaffed and does not serve the community. So I'll be proposing all these things to the community and get complete consensus and agreement that this is what we want for our community. Once we have the free source of electricity, we can offer the people the following. Everyone can have free electricity, but you have to contribute 3 hours a week in one of the community projects. That's it.
Yeah.
So we use the foundation of alternative electricity as a unification tool to unite the people. And once the people work 3 hours a week in one of the community projects, you've already got your abundance. You don't have to worry about anything else. Out of that comes your unity within community and your abundance that you can then consume for what you need and make it available at a fraction of the cost to your neighboring communities. The energy, the electricity, is a critical tool, and this is why it remains the most fiercely protected area of industry. Unfortunately, that time is up because there are too many researchers, too many inventors, too many scientists that have created alternative energy devices, and it's now coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Very soon you're going to be able to find them everywhere and anywhere. And,
I fully agree. I literally emailed somebody today who wrote to me about one, and he was showing me him putting it together, and he was just tweaking a couple of key pieces, and it was, you know, can I say it was fully working? Not just yet, but he's not far, and I've seen other people blow hot air, if you will, as well. But I agree with you that it is definitely coming out of the woodworks. It's going to surface.
The other device that I can tell you about that has now been done several times is the boiling water with sound frequency.
Yes.
Right. What I've been talking about for a long time now about Peter Davey in New Zealand. Well, I've been offered the same device by 3 different individuals, one in Australia, one in New Zealand, and one in Seattle, and they all work perfectly well. It's just a resonance. You can work it with a car battery and a solar panel and a frequency generator. It doesn't use a lot of wattage to create that resonance. And it's that resonance, the frequency, that then boils the water. So you're not heating the water, you're resonating the water. So it virtually boils virtually instantly. And that is a huge breakthrough. Those are available. If you go looking for them, start testing with them, manufacture them, make them, test them, and you can create your own little steam turbine to drive a generator. And then you just attach more and more generators to it. And boilermakers and guys that work with steam train technology will know exactly how to deal with that. And every town, every community can have their own small little steam turbine that turns a generator or turns any other device that generates electricity. And then you've got truly free electricity, because these little devices that boil water with sound cost $15 to put together. It's a lot expensive technology.
Yeah. No, I would love to be put in contact with some people, and I'm sure you have some connections. Like I said, we're out the gate. I don't know how long you guys have been at this, but this is year 2 for us. Our website has not even existed for 2 years, and we now are getting more and more traffic, more and more people, and I know the same applies to you. It's getting crazy. It's incredible. I find it so inspiring. There's so many solutions, whether it be with resonance, whether it be kind of Tesla Tower, whether it be this or solar panel or whatever. They're all there. They're so abundant, and they're all. It's amazing how they're all coming to a crest right now. And I guess it goes back to what we were saying earlier. We crossed that galactic kind of significant space in 2012, probably, that allowed us to I don't know. It's a shift in kind of, you call it prophecy or enlightenment or whatever. We're something is happening, and it's inexplicable. It's literally inexplicable.
Well, what is happening? Just in case you're not aware of this, and your listeners are not aware of it, what is happening is our DNA was activated. Remember, in the galactic equator are all the concentrated frequencies of our solar system, of our galaxy, the Milky Way. And those very highly concentrated frequencies activated our DNA as we moved through it in 2012 through the galactic plane. I mean, our solar system moved through it. So basically, the junk DNA in our bodies was activated, and that's where all the good stuff is. That's where all the activation of our higher consciousness, of our awakening, of our higher abilities is sitting. Those genes, that DNA part of, or that section of our DNA is where all the important stuff sits. The 1 or 2% that we were using until now, that was part of the program for the slave species. So we obey, and we're good slaves, and we do what we're told. Now we've gone beyond that, and this is why, because our DNA is literally activating on a daily, minute by minute, second by second basis, and more genes are being activated, and this is allowing us to think higher thoughts. It's allowing us to contemplate things that we weren't able to contemplate yesterday or last month, and we're no longer filled with fear. And millions of people are going through this activation of our DNA, which is leading to the Great Awakening and the rapid rise of global consciousness. And this is why the energy devices that we're talking about, the ultimate energy device is our body. All right, so we're going through through increasing levels of consciousness, moving higher and higher on the ladder of consciousness until we finally reach the highest level of unity consciousness, when we realize that we are truly one with everything, and with our minds and our thoughts we can become one. In fact, the movie Lucy, that's just been released, deals with exactly that in a roundabout way. So when you become totally at one with everything, you don't need external sources of energy. But we're far from that. So we need to go through the various layers of consciousness. And what I've found is when you work with people that develop alternative energy devices, somehow they can be brilliant inventions and the most amazing devices that blow your mind at first. But somehow when you try and implement it on a global scale, things start to fall apart. And that I've never understood that. And Sasha Stone from New Earth has had the same experiences.
Yeah.
And many other people. I know that Foster Gamble at Thrive is probably going through the same dilemma and frustration. And I've been sitting with people that develop devices, and when the moment comes, when it comes to sharing it with the world, everything falls flat and it falls apart. That is a consequence of the low level of consciousness amongst the human race. We're not going to tap into the very high sources of alternative energy until our collective consciousness rises. What we are given are snippets of bite-sized small steps into alternative energies, small incremental steps like boiling water with sound. Most people can understand that. They'll be able to say, oh, okay, well, no longer burning coal to boil the water. We're now resonating the water so that it boils. It's like a kind of microwave technology. Yeah. People can understand that. It's not a giant leap in consciousness for them to grasp that. So I suspect that may become the next level of our provision of electricity, because most people in the world will be able to understand that. And so we will start to grow into new technology and new inventions as our collective consciousness grows.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, first of all, I have to say, can you believe that was an hour?
Yeah. It felt like 10 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a wide array of topics, and what I can say is that we're clearly on the right path. I think our collective energy, what you just talked about, that kind of that oneness is coming, and it's coming faster and faster and faster. And all we need to do is join the ride, be a part of the contributionism, contribute individually, because that is the person with the power. We are the persons with the power. We are the people in control of our destiny, of our society, and of everything that you see around us. You are part of it. If you understand that you are one with it, then you understand that you can control it and be a part of it too. And so, first of all, I have to thank you very much for being a guest. Thank you very much for spreading your wisdom, for fighting this fight, if you want to see it that way, or at least for resonating in this way. And for those who are looking for a way to contribute, here's a quick one. Contribute by clicking like, contribute by clicking share, contribute by letting more people know about this so that we can increase that collective consciousness, so we can increase this storytelling, so we can increase the kind of power, the collective consciousness of Ubuntu, of Valhalla, of things alike, and as well as of you listening. We are empowered by your clicks. We are empowered by your consciousness helping us find these solutions. We are empowered by your time and your energy, volunteering, and your emails, everything. All that love that you guys are sending us, all that truth that you guys are resonating towards us is helping us, and we are trying to just resonate it all back towards you in abundance, 3 times, if you will. So thank you very much, Michael, and super glad to have had you on. And I have a couple questions for you, so just maybe just hang on the line for a second. But thank you guys very much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share. All those things are super empowering to us. And all the description, all that stuff is all in the description. All the links to everything from the Ubuntu Party to Valhalla, everything you need down below. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
a comment. Until next time, be the hero you've always dreamed of being.